top 100 players in the NBA right now, according to The Ringer. And if you guys enjoy NBA content and like this, subscribe to my newsletter for free, where I post my own rankings on stuff like this and basketball breakdowns. So we'll see you over in the newsletter. Let's get into this one. We're going to start at the bottom. At 100, we have Bradley Beal. I do hope that he proves people wrong with this ranking. He's still only 31. Obviously, the injury concerns are there. I would have him much higher than 100, and I don't even know who is coming before him. I haven't looked at the list before I started recording the video. But then you got Jordan Poole at 99. Seems like at this point he doesn't really have that all-star potential that the Wizards thought when they brought him over from Golden State. Then you got Jalen Green, who I think is probably going to end up being too low on this list. A guy that I still think has all-star potential. I think a new situation could be really good for him on Phoenix. So we'll see how he does. And by the end of the season, he could be looking a lot better than this. Just has to be more consistent. And he was basically expected to be the number one scoring option on Houston, which maybe he can't be, but can it be number two behind Booker and be a top 50 player in the NBA? I definitely think that he can. He has the athleticism and all the tools. Then you got Jalen Duren. I think one of the best centers in the NBA. I think top 15. So I think underrated at 97. Then you got Herb Jones, a great wing defender. He could shoot the ball and score a little as well. I think probably going to end up being too low at 96. Then you got Toumani Camara, who is a very under the radar player. I would think a lot of people that watch the NBA don't even know who this guy is. Starting most of the season for Portland, one of the best wing defenders, but honestly, I'd probably rather have Herb Jones right below him, and they're kind of similar players, but I think Herb Jones is a better offensive player at this point. Then you have Mitchell Robinson, which this one, to me, is crazy. Obviously, the injury concerns are there heavily, and, when he just doesn't get on the court that often, I can't have him ranked in the top 100, especially above Jalen Duren. As a center, who would you rather have, Jalen Duren or Mitchell Robinson? Mitchell Robinson, 27 years old already. Duren is under 25, and I think already a better player. There's also been talk about Mitchell Robinson not even starting next year and having Yabusele start at center, or them going smaller and having Cat start at center and Mitchell Robinson off the bench. So I think way too high. Then you got Dillon Brooks. He's still only 29. He kind of seems like he is an older player, but I think personally I like Herb Jones better than Dillon Brooks and Bradley Beal. So, I would not have him this high. This list did come out in June, so they still have him on the Houston Rockets. 92, we have Nikola Vucevic. So for Vucevic, 34 years old. He's getting older. I think probably too low. He can still get you 18 and 10. And I want to see where he ends up. Hopefully he's not just on Chicago for the entire year. But I think too low on this list. Then you got Aaron Nesmith. Definitely a great role player that can get hot from three, as we saw in the playoffs. So at 91, I don't mind that. Paul George at 90, I think is crazy. He's 35. Obviously has injury concerns. I want to see him do well, but I just think the situation in Philadelphia is terrible, because as long as Embiid is there and injured, this team can't do anything, and it seems like Embiid just going to be injured for the rest of his career. So Peyton Pritchard at 89, one of the best six-man in the league, probably too low. Should be able to show what he can do this year with their injuries and play more minutes and more consistently and possibly even start. Then you have Tari Eason. I think shouldn't be on the top 100 because, may not even start in this next year with the Houston Rockets, and a guy coming off the bench who's just playing, like 20 minutes a night. It's hard for me to rank them this high, even if they are a good player. And you got Anthony Simons now on the Celtics. I feel like every year you think he has a ton of potential. He's already 26 now, season 6, but probably too low at 87. Devin Vassell, I think too high at 86. Would you rather have Bradley Beal or Devin Vassell next year, not for the long term. Obviously, Vassell is much younger, but Beal's still only 31. He was ranked 100 on the list. I think they're fairly similar players at this point, but I think Beal is just better. CJ McCollum at 85, he still has a good amount left in the tank for another year or two. Hopefully he ends up on another team. He's on Washington right now. Then you got Embiid at 84. It's hard to even rank Embiid. If you made this list last summer, he probably would have been in the top 20 of players and maybe even the top 10, but just with the injuries, it's kind of impossible to rank Embiid. Then you have Christian Braun, who is a great role player. I think too high on the list. I think Herb Jones is a better player at this point, or Bradley Beal. But as far as potential, and you got DeAndre Hunter, one of the best six men. I think kind of appropriately ranked here. Maybe offers a little bit more than Peyton Pritchard as a six man because he's better defensively, just because his size, and you could put him on the court more. So I do like DeAndre Hunter. Josh Giddey had an insane year last year after leaving OKC with the Bulls. I think probably too low at 81 for his playmaking ability. His scoring really stepped up, and his three-point shooting. Then you got RJ Barrett at 80. The problem with RJ Barrett is he seems like he's just stuck as like a very fringe all-star that's going to average around 20 points per game, not shoot incredibly high percentages, and not be good enough to be a second or even like a third option on a really good NBA team. So I think 80 is about appropriate. Josh Hart, I think maybe too high on this list. I think he has definitely benefited from being in the perfect situation with Thibodeau, who's just going to play him a ton of minutes and let him kind of just run around and do whatever he wants out there. Didn't have crazy stats. Doesn't do anything like exceptionally well in one area, so they say he's a Swiss Army knife. Definitely is, but we'll see how he is next year in a new role where he's not playing as many minutes. And then you got Dort, probably ranked too high here. He kind of plays like an Aaron Nesmith, maybe even like Herb Jones, and I think I like both those guys better, who were ranked a lot lower. Then you got Naz Reid, another one of the top six men. I'm pretty sure he won six men of the year. He just got a massive contract. The thing is, he just doesn't play that many minutes, which is hard to rank him here. I'm pretty sure Peyton Pritchard and DeAndre Hunter average more minutes than him. But if he can get more minutes, I think appropriately ranked ahead of those other six men. And then Miles Turner, maybe a bit low. He was a decent defender, can shoot the three, score the ball a bit. I think 76 is pretty good. Cam Johnson at 75. He is the classic 3-and-D wing, but also is a pretty good scorer. So maybe a little bit too low, but already 29 years old in just season 5 and hasn't really broken out into like a star player. And probably on Denver, he could be seen as much higher ranked on this list because he could be like the third option on this team behind Jokic and Murray. Then you got Nembhard at 74. Maybe too low because he is going to be the starting point guard for the Pacers next year with Halliburton out, and could be a massive coming out season for Andrew Nembhard. So we'll see. Then you got MPJ now on the Brooklyn Nets. Probably ranked too high, especially because now he's just going to go to Brooklyn and probably average around 20 points per game, and probably see his efficiency drop down because he's not going to be just taking wide open threes. So we'll see how he plays when he has to create his own shot, but I think too high on the list. Brandon Ingram at 72, maybe too low. People forget he has been an all-star. Definitely had some injuries, but hopefully they are not long-term injuries and he can kind of get over that. It seems like it's been forever since we've seen Brandon Ingram play, but he's still just 27, one of the best scorers in the NBA, so I think too low. Kobe White, I think too high on the list. He is a good scorer, but they have him listed at 6'5". I'm not sure he's 6'5". He looks a lot smaller. We've seen him be able to score the ball on a bad team in Chicago. I'd be interested to see what he does on a good team, if he can still score like 17, 18 points a game. So I think too high for Kobe White. Porzingis, it's really hard to judge Porzingis as well because we saw him in the playoffs like not play because of illness. So we don't know if that's really like a long-term thing. Obviously, Atlanta doesn't think it is. You know, Atlanta could be one of the best teams in the East next year with Porzingis if he's fully healthy. So this might end up being a really low ranking. Then we got Drew Holiday. You know, it will also be interesting to see what Holiday does on Portland with a team that's not expected to make the playoffs. Like, is he going to still be seen as one of the most impactful players on the court and most impactful guards? We will see, but I do think trending downwards as they have here. Zach LaVine at 68. He is an explosive scorer. I don't think LaVine has ever really been on a winning team, and he's 30 years old, so they're basically asking him to be the top scoring option on the Kings. If not, he's right behind DeRozan, which it seems like he can't really handle. You know, maybe LaVine, if he was on a team like that had a bigger star that he could play off of, like Detroit, if he could play with Cade Cunningham, he might look a lot better. And then you got DeRozan right next to him. I think these guys kind of appropriately right in the mid-level, maybe a little too low. You got Jaden McDaniels, great defender, not much of a scorer, and I think ranked a little bit too high. I guess they're just putting him here because Minnesota has been a pretty good team the past 2 years, but really, I think Minnesota would probably take DeRozan or LaVine for a playoff run over McDaniels, and he's ranked one ahead of him. Isaiah Hartenstein, hard to rank him. Obviously, just won a championship with OKC, but he kind of got played off the court in the playoffs at times. So hard to rank him this high. I think too high of a ranking. Van Vliet, they say he's trending upwards, and I do like Van Vliet. I think this year he might be trending downwards because Houston's going to have Durant to score more, and Van Vliet numbers might take a bit of a dip. He's still only 31. I always thought that he was a bit older than that, but Houston's going to be really good again, so Van Vliet probably will stay ranked around here. Then you got Caruso, extremely underrated. Obviously won a championship with the Thunder. One of the best all-around players, does everything extremely well, and especially defense and hustle, and can knock down big shots. He'll do everything for you, so I think pretty appropriately ranked. Just never going to put up huge numbers. Then you got Jalen Suggs. I think a bit too high because Suggs, I don't think has proven that he can be a starting point guard. Doesn't really seem like the point guard type, more of kind of like a shooting guard, but he's kind of forced to play point guard. And, you know, I don't love Jalen Suggs, so I would think this is too high of a ranking. Then you got Deni Avdija, who had a breakout season with Portland last year, put up some huge numbers at the end of the year. I think possibly too low, especially if Portland does make a little noise this year. Avdija could be very underrated. Not a ton of people pay attention to Portland. Mikal Bridges, I think, overrated. He just got a massive contract from the Knicks, but definitely disappears at times in the playoffs. He's like the third or fourth option on the Knicks, so I think a little too high. Dyson Daniels, I think appropriately ranked here. One of the best defenders at guards, but also he can make plays as one of the best playmakers as well last year. And he's still just 22, so I think can still get a lot better offensively. So I think maybe even too low ranked. Norman Powell. I'm blinking right now on where Norman Powell went. He definitely is not on the Clippers, so I got to look it up. Yeah, he went to the Miami Heat, which is very random, but I think could be good on the Heat. The Heat needed another scorer, so hopefully they give him the chance to start here. He was having a massive season last year, so I think can be a pretty good option, and the Heat probably will make the playoffs, maybe the play-in, but Powell could be a big reason why, an average over 20 points per game next year, so maybe underrated. Then we got Jared Allen. 57 seems pretty appropriate for him. He's not going to be anything special, but tall, athletic, grabs rebounds, catches alley-oops, solid defender as well. And you got Trey Murphy, who was an up-and-coming player. They literally say up-and-comer right here. He could score the ball like crazy that we saw last year, so could be underrated. And you got Rudy Gobert. Again, Gobert, a player that kind of gets played off the court in the playoffs at times, so I think too high of a ranking. He will put up some huge numbers defensively with the blocks, but just really bad on offense at times. And you got Austin Reeves. I think too high. Usually a third option. Definitely disappeared in the playoffs, so I think just too high of a ranking. Lauri Markkanen, I think too high. I think he's overrated. He's put up some big numbers on bad teams, but last year the numbers took a dip and the team was really bad still. We'll see if he ends up on a new team and can have a role as like a third option on a playoff team. Then I think 53 could be an appropriate ranking. Julius Randle had a massive playoffs for Minnesota. I think could be undervalued here, and especially if they ended up winning another series in the playoffs, this would look a lot better because Julius Randle was going off in the playoffs, playing his best basketball of his career, probably. Tyler Hero at 51 seems a little low for me. A guy that's now an all-star, should put up huge numbers again. And yeah, 51 seems low. 50 for Draymond seems high. The Warriors, for me, are a team on the decline, and Draymond just not as effective as he once was in his old age. So 50 seems way too high to me. I'd rather have like Jalen Duren, who's ranked like 96 on this list. Then you got LaMelo Ball at 49. It seems low, but I guess they are taking into account that he just is not a winner in the NBA so far. So we'll see. I like Charlotte more than most people going into next season with LaMelo, Brandon Miller, both healthy. We'll just see if they can stay healthy. And then you got Jalen Johnson, who is on the up. I think appropriately ranked here. LaMelo seems way too low. And then you got Desmond Bane at 47, which seems pretty accurate. A guy that can score the ball, play make a little bit. Honestly, I think he should see some point guard. We talked about Jalen Suggs not really being a point. Bane may take some ball handling away from them. Scotty Barnes at 46. Similar to LaMelo Ball in that he just has been putting up some decent numbers on a bad team. And I think LaMelo Ball is probably better than Scotty Barnes because Barnes, the shooting has always been a problem with him. And if he's not a big-time scorer, it seems hard to put him in the top 50. Zion, another guy that's hard to rank because of all the injuries, hasn't really ever played winning basketball. So I think 45 is pretty appropriate. Kyrie, 44 seems too low, especially on Dallas, where he's probably going to be the top scoring option. Can still get 25 every single night and like 7 assists. So I think too low for Kyrie, especially the trajectory of Dallas expected next year when they get healthy. They're supposed to be one of the top title contenders. Damian Lillard at 43. Obviously, tore his Achilles. Now he's coming back on Portland. I don't know what he's going to be on Portland in 2 years. So I think too highly ranked. And we got Aaron Gordon, one of the best power forwards in the NBA. He can shoot the three. He can defend. He can rebound. He can finish at the rim. So I think pretty good ranking at 42. 41, Amen Thompson. Basically Aaron Gordon, but better, but can't shoot at all. I think right now Gordon might be better, but Thompson moving forward should be better, maybe even starting next year. Then you got OG, I think ranked way too high. Pretty solid defender and a decent scorer, but I'd rather have guys like Amen Thompson, Aaron Gordon for sure. Tyrese Maxey at 39 seems low. He averaged 26 points per game and like 6 assists the past 2 years in All-Star. Then you got Derek White, possibly too high. It will be interesting to see what White does this upcoming season without Jason Tatum and Drew Holiday, where they're asking him to score in the 20 point per game range. Then you got Franz Wagner, great young player, I think appropriately ranked. Sengun, first time All-Star, may take a dip next year. I think better than Zubac. Zubac may be a little too high at 35. Then you got Ja Morant at 34, which is really low for Morant. It was talked about a top 10 player like 2 years ago, now all the way down at 34. Memphis, one of the most interesting teams because we really don't know what to expect from them. This time last year, people were talking about them as a top 5 team in the West. Now they're talking about them missing the playoffs, so we'll see what he can do. And then you got Trae Young at 33. I think pretty appropriately ranked. Bam Adebayo, one of the best defenders at the center position. He can also score the ball. 32 seems pretty nice. Sabonis, he's being asked to do a lot on the Kings. and basically carry the team, which it seems like he can't do. So 31 might be a little high. Harden, people keep thinking he's going to regress. He's 35, but just keeps playing extremely good basketball. I think 30 appropriately ranked. Jamal Murray at 29, a bit too high for a guy who's supposed to be a second option and just hasn't been that since they've won the championship. Just very inconsistent. I'd rather have Kyrie Irving than Jamal Murray or James Harden, maybe even like LaMelo Ball. Darius Garland at 28 seems high to me as well. All those guys I just named, I'd probably rather have than Darius Garland. He's had really good spurts at times, but has had injury stuff in the playoffs and just really underperformed in this year's playoffs. Great in the regular season, but got to do it in the playoffs. Chet Holmgren at 27 seems pretty good. One of the best defenders. Hopefully we'll see him score the ball a bit more this upcoming season. De'Aaron Fox at 26. When he was with the Kings, he was absolutely balling. Had the Kings as one of the best teams in the league, which is crazy for him to lead the Kings to, I think they had the second best record in the West 2 years ago and made some noise a couple years. Then they traded him. Did not do great in his short time, half a season with the Spurs. So we'll see what that turns into next year. Just got a massive deal though, but definitely can be better than a lot of point guards we've seen on the list. Jaren Jackson seems too high. I'd rather have a guy like Bam Adebayo than Jaren Jackson, and this just seems egregiously high to me. I'd rather have probably Chet Holmgren as well. Jimmy Butler. The Warriors made a little bit of noise after they acquired Jimmy Butler. We'll see if that still stands up, but he's just been this exact thing right here that they say. So, we'll see how he is moving forward, but I think on this list, way too high. Siakam, I guess just because of the playoff run they had, ranked really high, but I think too high on a list unless you're just talking about what they did at the end of the season. Paolo Banchero, 22, one of the best young players in the NBA. I think we could see a massive breakout from Banchero. He did have a major injury last year that definitely hurt the Magic, and then they just didn't do anything in the playoffs, and he kind of disappeared down the stretch. So need to see more consistency probably to get in the top 20. Jaylen Brown at 21. One that I don't mind. I'm really excited to see what he can do this year with no Tatum. We'll see if he can score, maybe even lead the NBA in points per game, something crazy like that, because we've seen him average 25 with Tatum. Without Tatum, he could average like 28, 29 points per game. Jalen Williams at 20. So obviously they have bumped him up here because OKC had the best record in the league. He does play defense and he scores at a decent clip. To get him in the top 20, I think I would have to see him score more than he has been so far in his career to get him this high. But I think guys like Jaylen Brown are better. Banchero maybe even better at this point and has higher upside. So hard for me to get him at a 20. 19 for Booker. Booker has been great. They went to that one NBA Finals. Now it looks like the Suns are going to be pretty bad. Booker could have insane numbers though. So I don't mind Booker at 19. Cat at 18 I think is too high. Somewhat gets exposed on defense and probably not even the best player on his team. Evan Mobley at 17 seems really high as well. Evan Mobley versus Chet Holmgren. I kind of like Holmgren a little better, especially for Mobley, who still hasn't shown he can score the ball or shoot the ball, which was supposed to be a thing, that he was supposed to be a solid three-point shooter. Then you got Cade Cunningham at 16. For me, maybe a little low. I'm a lot higher on a lot of guys than Cade Cunningham. I would have him closer to the top 10. Kawhi Leonard at 15. I think too high at this point in his career. Obviously, the injury concerns have been a thing with him forever, and now he's kind of been healthy the past couple of years, but just hasn't been as good or as effective, and we saw that with an early exit in the playoffs. Durant at 14 seems pretty appropriate, maybe a bit low. We'll see who's ahead of him. AD at 13 seems about right. LeBron ahead of Anthony Davis and Durant. I don't know how I feel about that. I'd probably rather have both those guys. Then you got Wemby at 11, which seems a little low. Tatum at 10 seems low. Brunson at 9 seems high to me. I'd rather have Tatum and Wemby and LeBron and AD and Durant probably over Brunson if we're just talking about this next upcoming year. Donovan Mitchell at 8, too high for me. he's a great player. I don't think a exceptional star as far as leading his team to the NBA Finals and dominating and winning like we've seen a lot of guys. I'd probably put him at like 17, 18 on the list. Then Halliburton, way too high at 7. I think the thing he does the best is just be a clutch and timely player. But if you look at his stats and his numbers, not going to be anywhere close to anyone in the top 30 on this list. And obviously they're coming off 2 great seasons of runs. We'll see what happens when he comes back in 2 years, if he can still reclaim that magic that he had in the past 2 seasons on these playoff runs. But the playoff runs obviously have helped him. If they lost in even the second or third round in each of the last 2 years, he probably would be ranked around in the 60s or 70s. Then you got Anthony Edwards at 6. Doesn't crack the top 5. Just a year ago, we were talking about him as the best player in the NBA after they went to the conference finals. Now they have him at 6 here, which I think is pretty appropriate. I could even see putting guys like Tatum ahead of him, possibly even Wemby, depending on how the Spurs are next year, which I think they're going to be a playoff team. And Wemby probably your average like 26, 13, 4 blocks and 5 assists, which would be insane numbers and be an MVP. So I think Wemby is too low. And then Steph Curry at 5. He still gets it done. I mean, at times he's definitely a top 5 player in the NBA, but then in the playoffs, can he still do it for a 7-game series and basically carry the Warriors into playoff series wins, which we haven't really seen the past 2-3 years? So probably just not consistent enough at this point to be in the top 5. Then you got Luka at 4. Obviously went to the NBA Finals, then traded to the Lakers, and Lakers quickly flamed out. If he can take the Lakers on a deep playoff run again, 4, definitely a good ranking, could be even higher. Giannis going to have insane numbers without Damian Lillard next year at 3. I don't mind. SGA at 2. Just won the championship. Maybe you put him 1, but then you got Jokic at 1. So that video took forever. If you made it this far, you obviously enjoyed the content, so subscribe to the channel. Check out some of the other videos on the channel, and also follow my free newsletter. It'll be linked down below, and we'll see you guys over in another video.